Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Love and Lattes. I am your host, Victoria, and I'm here with the beautiful Rachel Rose. Rachel Rose is a London, UK native, and she's a certified relationship and boundaries life coach, qualified in various energy healing modalities. Rachel enables women all over the world to demystify the dating scene and attract the partners that they deserve without compromising on quality or wasting any of their precious time. With her unique combo of psychology, neuroscience, and energy healing, she mentors highly successful, spiritually inclined entrepreneurs, as well as the corporate ladder climbers, through their journey to attract their equal in love and ultimately live the feminine dream. So when you work with Rachel, be ready to say goodbye to those situationships and dead-end first dates and hello to commit-ready men who can lead and provide in a relationship with a healthy dose of masculinity. Whew! I'm excited. Thank you for being here, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. It's so lovely to collab again. Honestly, you're like one of my soul sisters across the pond. So happy to connect. This is that bio is just like, oh yeah, let's get into it. It's funny hearing someone read your bio, isn't it? And you're like, oh, that's me.
Like, oh yeah, I'm hot
Oh.
top.
Yeah. So thank you for the intro.
Absolutely. And yes, also Rachel has her own podcast, which we connected with and had our own episode. And I'm going to link all of Rachel's goodies in the additional show notes.
Thank
So
you.
first things first, Rachel, there are a lot of hot words in that interesting bio. And what I really want to get into is what does it mean to attract your equal?
Mm.
And attracting, like, not just any equal, but attracting your equal in love and then in the dating scene.
So I love this question because I think at the moment you'll see a lot of posts on Instagram where you'll have people who are very passionate about love but may not be, I want to say quote unquote qualified, not qualified in the traditional sense, but qualified in the way that they're seeing it from a very objective 360 point of view. Equal does not necessarily mean like two people walking down the street in their like pinstripe suits and they've got their glasses on and they're this like power couple and they're both rich. That's one concept of equal. When I talk about finding your equal, it's something that's very bespoke to every single woman because everyone will be at a different point in their life. Everyone has their own different priorities and values. And so finding your equal is finding someone who really aligns with your biggest values, your biggest achievements, what your aspirations are for life, love, wealth, and health. This is someone who really aligns with that. And what's really important to note is it's not a copy and paste person. So, for example, you and I are both entrepreneurs. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean that you would be stuck with an entrepreneur and that means that's the only person that's your equal, but it's someone who is aligned with the way that you view the world, the kind of love that you're aspiring to share with that person. As long as those are aligned, that is someone who's your equal. And above all, someone who shares that idea that love is sacred and is intentional with dating as much as you, for example, are, or anyone in the audience is.
Mm, intentional. So that's another, I feel like with social media, I think the concept or the flow of dating has been kind of washed out in a way.
Mm.
So when you say intentional, what are your thoughts on that when it comes to a man pursuing a woman?
Yeah. So you'll know, for example, the difference between an intentional and non-intentional man when it's quite clear that they're, for example, on the dating apps and it's just for a dopamine hit. Like they are there and they've like gamified the entire experience because they're not asking you out. If when Victoria links everything, you'll see on my bio that there's a free training for cutting that talking stage. So you're not dealing with people for weeks or even months or God forbid years on end. Yeah. Talking in the talking stage because these are the people that just want to collect pen pals. There's obviously a part like a what I like to call like some sort of emotional void that speaking with strangers and beautiful women fills, but ultimately their intention deep down is not to have that partnership. There's a block that they still need to work on. Whereas an intentional man that really does desire that partnership where you get to grow together and share a lot of these beautiful things that make life what it is, they are going to move through those steps. They're going to intentionally be looking and asking you very specific questions, what your values are, for example, what is it that you want out of this connection that you're both sharing? And it will be very clear. First of all, because he's going to be asking you out. He's not going to be interested in a 2D, text only or voice note only relationship. He wants to know the 3D human being and see all the nuances that make you you, but in real life.
Oh, that's so exciting. And I feel like people listening are gonna be like, okay, yes, how do I find him? Is it only on the dating apps?
No, so I'm finding women are finding more and more that they want to do things in real life or R IRL. I've seen so many Americans say that, and I'm like, it's so hard for us to say over here, IRL. But in real life, and I feel mostly because, not everyone is, of course, who they say they are. Not everyone is as, as honest as I'm sure a lot of the women in your audience are, for example. And, there is a tendency that I've heard so much that men in particular, not so much women, but men will put pictures up there like 15 years old, and like you'll go and meet them and it's like, Who's this?" It's like, "Oh, it is me," but just when before the whatever before, but it's still me. And it's just a very false invitation to get to know someone if it's obviously not their current picture and their current state. So there's things like that, and the ghosting, and the I feel like the disconnect that a lot of women are experiencing in dating apps is, all of that all together, and they just want to see what it's like to meet someone organically again. Um, and that experience of, getting to meet someone organically and maybe actually for themselves, not having that superficial filter in terms of being able to dispose of people, really getting more grounded and more in the humanistic um, um, of things, a more humanistic view of things, of just, really appreciating someone because, face to face, you can't just walk away from someone if you get bored. You have to actually, well, maybe some people do, but you've got to actually like invest in the conversation, right? This is a human being. And I feel, this is what the pull is. I get to meet real people with real feelings who have real jobs, and in order to actually be at an event, for example, whether it's specifically for singles or if it's like an activity event where you just might happen to meet a single, there is a time and energy and resource investment that kind of filters out sometimes a lot of the people who would prefer to be in their bed and swipe and have, not have that direct connection. So those are the kind of pluses, and I'm seeing success with women for both apps and offline offline, face to face.
Yeah.
So not only apps, you can do it both.
I find that, and I'd love to hear your take on it as well, because you're engaged.
No, I was engaged. We definitely gonna we'll dive into that. Gosh, sorry guys. I'm really struggling because it's the evening over here. I'm struggling with my words. But no, we'll dive into that because it's important we discuss what to look out for when you are engaged. But I am taken. So yeah, we can look at all the things, whatever you want.
Thank you for clarifying that. Um, with your current partner, did you guys meet on the dating apps or was
We
it?
did. We met on Tinder. I know Tinder's got a bad rep. I know. It's got a bad rep. But it can work. And it's funny because my best friend very recently has met someone who she's really crazy about also on Tinder. So, the main thing I say it's really not about the app specifically. It's about all of the like I feel when it comes to the formula I use for my signature program, 2/3 or maybe even a little bit more is nothing to do with what you're using. It's
Mhm.
all about your actual strategy, which no one and nothing can take away. But you obviously can pick what you like, what you're attuned to. Hinge, for example, I think is a great app, depending on what city or town you are in, because you can just really filter on a lot of crap that you do not want to see. You can have some really big, like, non-negotiable stuff, like if height is a thing for you. I personally feel women should not feel bad about this. I feel like particularly women at a certain age, like around about late 30s, early 40s, are now starting to think, should I compromise on that? Should I compromise on look? Should I compromise on that? And I'm just a big advocate for do not do that because why? Do you think men are doing that? No. And I challenged someone in the comments one time. They were like, women just want too much. Like they should just be settled with a 6 and that's fine. I was like, would you be settled with a 6? And he was like, oh, da, da, da. And all the women came in. I'm like, go, girl. Because, men are just so confident, even a man that you personally wouldn't be attracted to would still be so confident that he can get you. And I feel like women need to adopt that part of men just being confident. I'm going to get this no matter what. And just hold that vision because ultimately it is going to add to your overall satisfaction in the relationship. That was a very long tangent, but
No, I think it's important to emphasize that, yeah, you're right that the dating apps do have a bad rep. Like Tinder is usually like the hookup app, and
yeah,
yet we're seeing online, or like I personally have met couples. I'm like, oh, how did you guys meet? And they're like, oh, we met on Hinge, and they're
there you go.
married.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah,
wow, I personally I've had some great matches myself. I will say though, like nothing beats in real life, like organic
yeah,
spontaneous, like whether it's just like your paths happen to cross at random times
yeah.
or you approach, whether you do the approaching or, and like I would say for some most women are going to be getting approached by a man.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people at the moment are trying to recreate the good old days where, even things like makeup was simpler. Like the whole idea of attractiveness was a lot simpler. We're not bad mouthing like fillers and all these stuff, like, do whatever suits you, but it was a very simpler time. For sure. And I think, because I'm writing actually something for an article where they were asking about like people are doing these like kind of retrofit dating techniques where they want to rewind back. And I said, well, I can't say if it's going to work or not, but I think it's interesting to try and meet someone the good old-fashioned way with today's awareness. Like, I don't see how that can't be successful and can't be interesting to, explore. So I would say go for it. But I totally agree. It's just that assurance, and maybe it's even this, and maybe you can resonate this, but it's like this feeling when you meet someone organically, like, oh, I know this is destined for me. Like this isn't someone, obviously they're still living in the world and they're dating other people, but this isn't someone who everyone has had a taste of because they're on an app with thousands and thousands of people. It's like I feel like this is an alignment because we've happened to be in the same, for example, coffee shop at the same time at the right place. There's this intrinsic kind of electricity between us. It feels way more personal
Mhm.
rather than on an app where it's like, oh, well, Jim is speaking to 500s of me. So, what, how special is this connection at this present point? So,
Yeah, you can't beat the energy feeling of
hmm
someone and you're like, why am I suddenly so cold? Like I feel
yeah,
like at this point, like I'm either gonna say something or they will.
yeah, yeah. And it's sexy, it's a real aphrodisiac to have that like awkwardness of, oh, are they going to talk to me? Am I going to say something? And like, okay. And it's nice, that anticipation. If you do swap numbers, like who's going to call first? Like that does kind of get removed, or, replaced with something which is a different experience when it comes to dating apps.
Yeah. So
Mm,
I kind of want to pivot a little bit because you're definitely helping women attract this equal, this man, finding love. And when you stated like, a healthy dose of masculinity,
hmm
what does that mean? Like, what does it mean for a
Yeah.
man to have I would say, healthy dose of masculinity so that a woman can still be in her femme or be
Mm.
herself?
Yeah, I feel, particularly the women that I work with, they are after the man that leads. And I think this can sometimes be portrayed in a way that is toxic, like, oh, but women should also have their power. It's not disempowering the woman. It's talking about a powerful woman with a man that is very happy to be in that masculine role so she can drop into that feminine energy. And that is just all about the man being, again, like I said, intentional, really making sure the relationship is a priority, like suggesting things to move the progress of the relationship forward and having your input as well. So that, yes, you are working together, but you do have that driving force there. You get to be that nourishing energy and that nourishing woman and, pull back into yourself with energy that if you aren't in that kind of feminine and masculine dynamic where you're just forced to be in your masculine, then you actually don't have the capacity to pour that back into yourself or into your man because you're busy doing all of the things that is ultimately, when it's misused, really unnatural and unhealthy for us. My opinion.
No,
So, yeah, it's all about having that sense of this man who is, you'll feel it anyway, energetically, a man that's really in his masculine and really secure in himself. But a healthy dose looks like someone who sees, for example, conflict as an opportunity to be curious rather than be defensive and take it as something personal. Like someone who's healthy in their masculinity as a partner is someone who's like, okay, well, let's explore this together. They don't have to be perfect. It's definitely not about being perfect, but it's about someone who sees, I guess, the relationship and the partnership as this journey and all about learning about you as a woman who's always evolving. You're not this fixed picture. They really understand that and they understand the differences between both of you, but they're happy to bring forth their qualities in order to complement that.
Mm. I this excited because I like, as you said, like as entrepreneurs, we're constantly on. Like
All
we
the
are
time.
structured. And so when we have that when people are like, what do you do for fun? I'm like, fun?
What's that?
I'm probably sleeping. Uh,
Literally.
I do feel like it does feel so good to like be able to be connected with a man who, creates this sense of security, not just like in terms of like, oh, well, I make lots of money and I've got a job.
Mm,
That's great because I do too. It's more of like this growth, this curiosity,
yeah.
the capacity, as you said, asking specific questions.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, that is such a turn on.
Yeah, it's very sexy. And I think, I was talking to someone the other day, he was a guy friend, and he was like, I totally get it when, women are with men that maybe other people wouldn't see her with, but when they're with someone, that intellectual who's wants to know about your mind, they're thirsty to get to know you on such a deep intellectual level. And like like really stimulating for them. And normally like you're going to find someone like that who's already like very much obsessed with their own personal growth. Like it's going to be almost like a healthy addiction, like if I even want to use the addiction, like, but it's like a primary focus and a need for them to understand people because this is why, yes, okay, it'd be great, if an entrepreneur can be an entrepreneur, great, because the mindset is very similar. Imagine if you and I were just stuck in a place where I've learned everything I need to learn and that's it. You and I wouldn't make any money. So, we wouldn't be better coaches, we'd just stay stagnant. So it's great if you can't find a like for like entrepreneur, then someone who at least embodies that, knowing that they always, until the day they die, are going to be the student when it comes to life.
Hmm. I would be a student forever. Yes. And I do think when it comes to being with the man who has that healthy dose of masculinity, I've learned over time that just filtering dates and experiences and my relationships, I've learned that like men are smart,
hmm
absolutely intelligent. They know when they want something. Would you
Yeah.
agree that your clients can feel the difference between a man who's like, I'm ready to like get to know you versus like, again, I'm not saying anything on the apps, but like let's say you match with partner A and they're just, it's just the dating. Like you're just,
Mm,
which is fun. I think dating is, it's fun experience. However, like once you have that intention, like for myself, I'm like, I'm dating to, connect with a partner who's ready to put in the work, like as much as I've put in the work for myself
yes.
for the long haul. Like we're talking like partnership, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've seen like the difference between a man who's like, I'm not really sure what I want, or they
Mm,
might be looking for partnership, but yet they still have a little bit of they're like they're allowing themselves to be open. What
yeah.
that with a man
Yes. So
kind of
basically it's so like you said, like you can tell, like you can visibly you don't have to be an expert, you don't have to have been doing this for 50 years. There are really key signs. I think men are a lot simpler than women like to think. I say the same thing to men about women as well. They're simple in a way that everything that they say can be validated with their actions, everything. So unfortunately, there are a lot of men out there who are imitating love. They know the buzzwords to say, they know the buzzwords to get you on a date, to keep things going. I think it's a lot more common in the US from what I've heard than in the UK, but there's like a culture of dating where someone could be dating someone for half a year and it's like, we're just dating, but you're not in a relationship. And it's like, okay, all of these words of you're special and you're whatever, but actually, 6 months, you haven't met any friends, you haven't met anyone, and it's quite clear that it's stagnant. So I would say, when a man is intentional and he's got a plan, normally he is the one, if this is someone who leads, it's really in their healthy masculine energy as their dominant energy, they will be mentioning their intentions pretty early on. Like it will be pretty clear. There is, with a pinch of salt with this, I would say, because there are some men that take it a little bit too far. And for example, on the app, say like, I want to have a baby this year. And it's like,
Ooh.
okay, that's not nice for women because that means no matter who it is, you don't care. That's how we would interpret it, right? But it's the men that, on the first date, they're already asking you, what are your intentions? These are, what my intentions are. Or at least in the first few days. It should be early on, they will let you know like what their plan is. And it doesn't necessarily mean that once they've had that conversation, it's definitely going to be you two. And, I think a lot of women need to go in there with that kind of level of detachment, but you are going to know what they're about in general from them mentioning that. And then just watching their actions, like, do they match up or not? And just because, for example, it's not a long-term match, it doesn't mean that, he wasn't intentional. It just means that on his side, he didn't feel the connection. And that's totally okay. But yeah, a man that's intentional, for example, this is why, when it comes to planning dates and all of this stuff, I think some men feel that we're in our princess energy, and why shouldn't we be in our princess energy, about, oh, well, they just want us, you just want us to wine and dine them. And it's not about the expense, at least for a lot of women. It's not about, you know, being a peacock and showing off and all this stuff. It's about the intention of, I like you. I know your time is valuable. I think you're a quality person, and I'm going to make sure that I'm putting in effort to think about what kind of activity we could do, where we could eat, and all this kind of stuff. And a man who knows that, the courting stage is not something separate from a relationship is someone who gets that. They're thinking long term. They are understanding that they're building the initial dating stages are the building blocks to what's going to be the foundation of whether you go into a committed relationship with them. That is going to be the foundation that's really going to hold that relationship like firm when, of course, the honeymoon period does fall off or wears off, and you're going to have conflict. At least you have that foundation of building that love and that trust and that emotional safety first. So yeah, another long-winded answer, Victoria. Apologies, but yeah, you will see it in their actions, and the men that with some of the strategies, like I said in my freebie that I will drop Victoria the link to, they once you start implementing them, people will disqualify themselves, which is great when the trash takes itself out. Like it's wonderful because you'll be talking with them, and there'll be things that you'll drop that a non-intentional man would just be like, man, I just want to smash. She's a bit, nah, I'm not dealing with this. And I'll just ghost you. And that's the good kind of ghosting. Like we want people to disqualify themselves. So, so yeah, you will know. And I think the key thing with this as well is women just, when it's like, look at their actions, it's all about making sure that when we do fantasize, because all of us do, you meet someone and you can't help it. There will be, you'll listen to your R&B songs, like maybe Usher's new album, which is amazing, by the way. I am not endorsed by Usher or any link to Usher whatsoever, but it's very good. Or Khalid, that's another good one. But like you're listening to their beautiful music and you get a flash and you're like, oh, I wonder what our life could be. Women, like that's not a bad thing. That's a very female thing to do. But when you're paying attention to actions rather than falling in love with words and posts and poetry, then that allows you to have that healthy dose and cutoff of where fantasy begins and ends. Because I feel this is where women get trapped. And this is where that blur between, oh, I thought he was all about me, and him actually being about you can be, confused with.
That's a really good point.
Mm.
I feel like it's really easy to kind of get mixed up or, like you said, fantasize like with sweet words because it feels
Hmm.
to feel seen. It feels good to have someone who has said, like, hey, I'm very interested in getting to know you, but like we're at a point now, like again, as business owners, we're like, hey, I'm continuing to grow. Are you coming with?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
what do you think? So what do you think about that though? So like let's say like we're continuing to build, we're scaling and we're, meeting people. Is it appropriate? Is it up to us to create that invitation like, hey, I've really enjoyed like getting to know you. Hopefully you've met this person and had a couple dates, but now it's like if you're in it, to find your partner, to find, to find the equal in love.
Hmm.
So what do you think about that?
Is your question regarding like you've dated them for a while and it's like when do you move on to the exclusivity chat?
Yes. And
Yeah.
then I want this to kind of build into, like you said, the engagement and how do you know
Yes.
the
We
yes?
don't let me leave this without talking about the engagement and what we were talking about in our other call. Hold me hostage because yeah, I think it's good, some of the things that we brought up. But back to your first question. So I feel women trip up on this because had you made it clear in the talking stage, the way that I talk about in that freebie, you won't be in a position where it's like, so what are we? Because your mission is to make sure that is crystal clear. Your mission is to make sure your standards are crystal clear, your vision for what you want is crystal clear. So if you're in a position where you don't know where you stand, something's gone wrong. And you
Mm,
most likely are with someone who's an imitation of what you're looking for rather than someone who's intentional. Because in those beginning stages, you would have weeded out if you were in alignment or not, at least with words. If you get to that point where it's like, okay, it's been 3 months, no movement, no discussion, no obvious change in energy, or no, maybe you bump into someone and he's like, hey, this is maybe he'll just say, hey, this is Victoria, but then afterwards you have the discussion, or he'll be like, hey, this is my girlfriend. Then you've got someone who unfortunately wasn't filtered out properly in the beginning. So I feel like it could be a lot easier than, us getting to that point. And it's so awkward, isn't it? Like we hate doing it. And why do we hate doing it? Because it's a very masculine thing to do.
yeah.
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good. And also I think it's really important to communicate early on, like as you said, and I
Yeah.
think it's important for everybody listening, like when you start right before you go into dating is identifying those values
Yeah.
and like what are you doing? Like why are you going into dating? And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's everybody wants to be with someone. However, you don't want to be with someone because you're like I'm lonely, it's more
Yeah.
like I'm ready to fall in love because I've already like created this life for myself and I'm ready for it to be shared with someone.
Yeah.
I think communicating, like you said, using like this guide, which I'm gonna try by the way.
Yay!
Because like, I think a couple months ago I kind of started with that's when I was finally ready to have this intention, of dating to find my equal, dating to find my partner, the person who's like going to allow me to be in my feminine
Yeah.
actions to, get to know me and everything else. So I think it's important to start off right off the bat, like, hey, I know we're attracted to one another or we've matched, etc. But make it very clear, like this is where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And you can't lose something that's not in alignment with you. So you're matching someone or you meeting them in an event and they're like, whoa, that's too much. And it's like, okay, great. The worst thing that could happen is they are like, okay, it's not for me. But also that could also be an opportunity for a friend. I feel like there's a lot of black and whiteness in all of this dating where, oh, well, if they're not a match, then let's, lose a human. Like maybe if you were talking with them and there was some camaraderie, that could be a new friend. And a friend could be the gateway to the person that you're actually looking for. So you never know. Like I would say, or your next client, depending on what your business is. So I'd say always keep the doors open and always keep grounded and have the vision, be unapologetic with the vision and just detach from how and when and what it looks like. Because if you're so sure and it's in your core, like obviously this is going to happen for me. Why wouldn't it? Trump has a wife. Like Hitler had a wife. If they can have partners, like why can't you? Like it's a very extreme example, but like look at those guys. Like it's inevitable. Like it's gonna happen for everyone. Like it's fine. But it's just about that intentionality and making sure you're confident in yourself because the universe is only responding to what you believe you can have.
Mm. Mm. I have so many things. We have to get into the engagement now. Like,
Yes, yeah, good. Okay, let's do it. So yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. So I was engaged, and I'll tell you guys the whole story with that because I bet you guys are like, "What? Like you were engaged? What happened?" So I personally feel like I'm not like a lot of relationship coaches. I think, no bad, thing about them or anything like that. But the difference I see is this whole, I'm a relationship coach and I met my person and I'm married now and I've got kids and that is it. Like I've just had this one person, that's it. And whereas I feel I speak more to the women who are the game changers in the world. When you're a game changer in the world and you're breaking generational curses, like you're going to have different relationships. You're going to have different situations. You're going to evolve a lot quicker. And so your experience is a little different. You may not meet the guy that you went to high school with and be with him for 20 years. And that's fine. It's a different reality. Your reality is more about the fact that you used to attract narcissists. Maybe you attracted them for a few years. Then you met someone who was completely different. They weren't necessarily a match for you. And it's moving through all of those and gaining that experience to then now be in a place where it's like, let me meet someone who's a lot more on my level and measures up to what I personally want. And these qualities that you've developed are a byproduct of all the different experiences of what you've seen that you don't want or what does work and you want more of. So with this particular experience, this was with a partner I was with for 4 years. To this day, great man. Like I wouldn't be who I am today. A very big part of myself wouldn't be here, I think, if it wasn't for him. Like he shaped and helped heal my masculine in a way that was perfect, perfectly timed. Everything was wonderful. However, as I was just saying, if you're someone who's in, very fast evolution, you're building things and it comes a time sometimes where you enter a relationship as a certain type of woman and you leave it as a different type of woman. And it takes a really strong person who's really deep in their self-love journey to say, anyone else would kill for this, but I know that it's time that I've got to move on now because I'm rising into an energy that it feels like this relationship has got a cap. Like there's almost like this ceiling that I've grown, almost outgrown the relationship. Even though it doesn't mean that this person wasn't bad or the relationship wasn't healthy. Uh, Not a lot of women have the guts to do that. So I did leave that engagement. It was hard. Like it was hard work. Because of course, like I said, like it wasn't like so unhealthy or anything like that, anything that was very obvious to anyone on the outside. I spent a lot of time trying to explain to people why I left until I realized that actually this is my journey and I don't really need that kind of recognition, but of my thoughts and feelings being valid. But the key thing I wanted to bring up in this conversation was the fact that when you get engaged, that's not the end of the story. Anyone who's been engaged before will tell you something happens to women. It's almost like you put the ring on and it's like, think of like the Power Rangers or like Lord of the Rings. That's a better example. Lord of the Rings, and it's like, whoa, and you kind of like something happens to you, something happens neurologically, something happens like I don't know, but something happens, something definitely changes. And I say this because if you have a look at some celebrities who have been engaged and you're like, wow, did they break their engagement? And you have no idea why because you're on the outside. It's because when you're engaged, it's almost like a mix of the external pressure and also the fact that you're now looking at your partner through a completely different lens, a lens that maybe you haven't really had a really authentic opportunity to really see them through. So he was a wonderful boyfriend. He was the kind of boyfriend who, if I was visiting him in Sicily, like he'd turn up with roses, that kind of like beautiful lover boy kind of thing. And, you know, you need to look at the engagement period as at the audition for marriage. It's not a right, I'm done and that's it. And let's just plan the wedding and it's going to be this Instagram, wonder wall or whatever. You've got to look at it as, right, this is a different lens. Like, what do I want in a husband? What do I really need to carry me from that point of view? What do I need to nourish me? What do I need to make myself feel emotionally fulfilled? And, sometimes it is still that person. Sometimes, during that engagement period, they do step up and they are that person. It's wonderful when that happens. But sometimes they're not, and that is okay. It's just where they are on their personal journey. But this is where I see women falling down, where, they're getting married and, women who are divorcing within a year, it's because they knew that normally they knew way before they said I do, that actually this isn't 100% in alignment with where I am right now. But you know, maybe it's a case of them not fully using that time to really see what is it that I want in a marriage? Am I sure that this is the person that's going to be able to fulfill that? And we did have conversations, about what our expectations were for marriage, etc. But this is why you need to look at actions. This is why you need to see like what they're actually doing, because it was very clear then by the time it was so close to the wedding that actually I don't think this is going to fall through. It's going to be a continuation of the boyfriend girlfriend dynamic, but with all the weight of a marriage. Do you want that, Rachel? And ultimately, by the point that I had been in that engagement, I had built my own business. I was fucking killing it. Excuse my language. I don't know if I can curse. Can I curse? Okay. I was like killing it, really manifesting these crazy opportunities. And there was a very distinct alignment in that, really distinct alignment with where we wanted our marriage to go and what our belief of, that divine union looked like. So I made the choice. I made the choice and I bet on myself and I said, you know what? Yes, I'm approaching mid-30s. Yes, this is fucking scary. Yes, a lot of people be like, are you stupid? You should be like planning your pregnancy and all this stuff. But I jumped because I knew the universe had got me and it was going to be inevitable that I met someone as long as I was clear and had that confidence in myself, like why wouldn't it be me, that it was going to happen. So yeah, I just think, also with engagement, don't rush to get the marriage done in a year. Like wait as long as you feel aligned to. If I know people have been engaged for 5 years, I think it's brilliant. Give yourself that space, give that person that space and just breathe, breathe. A lot of the times that first year of engagement, you are just bombarded, almost as like, the universe just like pushes all of this to you, maybe because you talk and like your phone catches it on the algorithm or something like that. But all of the ideas of what marriage is supposed to look like and your wedding is supposed to look like. And it's sometimes hard to hear your own voice, hard to hear your own intuition. And it's an important decision. So just, yeah, take your time. It's a really sacred time, the engagement period. Understand that, how your partner and yourself act is the pitch for marriage. Does that pitch work? Are you sold? Is that the life you want? And if not, be brave enough to break free because we've got a very long life. I saw I think it was just yesterday actually, Nicole Scherzinger. I came across her profile by accident. Wow. Like I said, look at this woman. Like she's 47, spectacular, living her life. She's just gotten engaged to her partner. I think he proposed like maybe a year ago, and she's 47. That doesn't fit into the normal timeline of when you're supposed to get engaged and get married. But do you think she gives a shit? No, because she's okay. She's Nicole Scherzinger. She's amazing, but also she's true to herself. She's like, well, this is my journey. And so, this is what you need to take that power back. Like, never feel that you can't take up space to really take up time and space to make a decision, or you can't make a decision because it's dependent on everybody's happiness. Do you know how many people had booked their tickets to our wedding and all, and I still said no. So, you've got to be brave enough and be willing to fall and let the universe catch you because it will.
Mm. Oh my God. That was some gold right there. And I hope you guys like rewind to the past, like maybe even to the beginning, or even rewind to like those, like the past 2 seconds of what Rachel just said, because that's very powerful. Like we can save so much energy, so much trauma, and we can also save a lot of people pain
Yeah.
by doing those hard things, knowing that, you know what, it doesn't look like the cookie cutter Disney movie. But I trust myself and I know that this is going to be the right decision, whether it is to walk away from an engagement, or in my personal case, it was going through a divorce. And then
Yes.
knowing that what's coming down the line is going to be fit. It's going to be better. It gets to be better. And it gets like, this gets to be you.
Yeah.
This is your life by design, and
Yeah.
you get to experience the things that you want.
I love that you said that because I was talking with a friend actually about people who live life in a way where life is happening to them. Like they're in the backseat of their life. And it's like, no, like you get to be the architect of every single piece of your life. So yeah, and yeah, you've just reminded me, yes, you have been divorced. So you know completely, you know what it's like. Yeah, and I really commend you as well because you've gone into the marriage as well. Divorce in itself with that whole procedure, like I can imagine was tough. And there must have been moments where you're like, do I want to do this still? Because there is this weight around it, right? But you stuck true to yourself and here you are, you
Yeah.
know?
Thank you, love. Like we're
Yeah.
hard things will continue to get the challenges and the
Yeah.
universe is always dropping in like these tests, like, oh yeah? Are you in alignment? You really gonna be in your feminine with this person?
It's true. And you know what? Sometimes I feel like I personally believe in multiple soulmates, right? Like you're gonna have multiple soulmates, and in between that, you will meet the ones that aren't. Have fun with them. It's okay. You know, like, come on, why not? You're a human. Like, if you're on Victoria's podcast and you're a passionate woman, sex is important. This is the reason why I'm like, don't pick no one you're not attracted to. Like, I really feel like your partner should be someone who they don't have to be a supermodel, but they should be someone who, when you look at them, you're like, oh,
Ah,
that's
yeah.
hot. You know? Why not? Why not? It makes me sad when women don't do that. Like I said, men, like a man, this is one thing I love about men's confidence. A man who maybe for you, for example, like you would consider him like 4 out of 10, physical looks only, right? If we're only looking at that. And he will go on a date with a knockout woman, knockout, except she hasn't painted her toes that day. Or, maybe her shoes don't really coordinate with her outfit. Something so trivial and stupid. And a man that physically, actually, for you is a 4 out of 10 would be like, you know what, you're a great girl, but it's just not going to work out. And he'll confidently like be like, we're not doing this, So it's okay. Go for what you want because you will get into the relationship with a good man. We got to talk about this concept. A lot of women are like, I just want a good man. You will get the good man and you will be emotionally unfulfilled. These are the women that are in marriages for 14 years and they're like, oh, I'm just not fulfilled anymore because you focused on the good man. A good man without that level of passion is a friend. That's a friendship,
Yeah.
you know?
It's like when you're like talking to your friends about like how the dates were, and they're like, "Oh, how was it?" And they're like, "He's nice," and that's it. And it's like, what else? And it's like, well, he did this. I was like, no, no, no. Like you like he needs to be more than just nice. Like it's not
Yeah.
a guy, and that has been a really big thing. Like that I have noticed is like, oh, he's nice,
Or he
and
treats me well.
like,
So does your mom.
and you should treat yourself well too. And like every kindness, like always being passionate, always, however, just like you said, just
Just that, listen, they do not have to be perfect. They can have a dad bod. And that's not the main point. We're not talking about perfection, but it's just that my analogy is when you're on a plane together, wherever it is, domestic or international, you should look over and they haven't brushed their teeth, they've got unwashed face, they've got yesterday's boxes on, and you're looking at them and you're like, oh my God,
oh
you're a bit delicious, aren't you? Just in their natural sleepy state with the sleep in their eyes. That's what it is, And that can, yes, it can build with like a lot of the emotional safety and over time and all stuff. But there's one thing that women do. I know you're going to resonate with this, where have you ever been on a date where you physically see them and like you've been speaking guys, I'm just no filter. Like I mean, I'm sure you can see right now, but like you've been visualizing and you've had the little fantasy, okay, I'm excited for the date, and you meet them, and your eyes do something where you almost like squint. You're almost trying to like see what you want to see because you're actually not physically attracted to them. Right?
no, that's terrible.
And you're just kind of like, oh. Oh.
Oh
And then throughout the day, like it could be head shape. And like, guys, I'm not a superficial person, but I feel like this is a part where women play down a lot and it is part of the whole attraction experience. Like we shouldn't be saying like it's not important. It is. It's not fair. Like it is. But it could be a head shape, it could be head size. I personally can't be with someone who's got a small head. Well, a head smaller than mine.
Mm.
I know that sounds so weird and so ridiculous, but it's like I can't do it. And height is a thing for me. You don't have to be like 7 foot, like towering over me like a bridge, but that's my preference. I know there's some women who don't care about height. There are some women who can't not be with someone who's not in the gym 8 days out of 7. Whatever it is for you, don't compromise, don't compromise on what it is that you actually like because it will show up. You'll bury it down and it will show up in the bedroom, or it will
Yes,
show up when, you're out and you're introducing them and again you're doing the whole squinting thing because maybe they don't dress in the way that you prefer that they would, or don't just be true to yourself. You save so much agony.
absolutely. And as Rachel
Yeah.
said, like every no you're saying, like everything that you know, sticking with like what turns you on and what
Yeah.
attracts you, like those qualities in the partner that you're looking for every
Mhm.
no you say, you're saving it up for that person.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because it's not just about you being, let's divorce from the idea of, oh, I've got to be the nice woman when it comes to dating. Like
Mhm.
ultimately, in this signature program, Attract Your Equal that I'm running at the moment, I'm saying to women like it's not just about I know that the title is like, okay, find a man. It's way more about that because we're talking about someone who ultimately, if we're talking about partnership rather than just dating for jokes or dating for half a year for companionship, you're going to be around that person for the majority of the time. What happens when you're with people for the majority of the time? Their mindset and their values and all that stuff really rub off on you. So, for example, you're with someone who, has a specific mindset about love, about money, about health, or anything like that. It will undeniably rub off on you for the better or for the worse. So, pick what this is really important to pick wisely. It's not a case of, oh, I just want a nice person. Got to pick someone where their contribution or their, I guess, inclusion in your life is gonna be breeding ground for some really awesome shit that you're gonna be birthing into the world. So you just pick properly. What's the point of wasting your time on a good guy?
Mhm.
What is that? Not discounting, the emotional availability of a good person, all that stuff, but just make sure it is what you want, you know, because it will come back to bite you.
Yes.
Mm.
Oh, Rachel, I've absolutely loved like having you on and
Yay.
everyone listening. I have to say, this has definitely been a lovely conversation. And you're coming back. I have to have you because
Yay. And
I
again, so sorry. Like my mouth is just like, we're going to bed. And it's like brain's like, no, we gotta do this because it's later over here. I'm in Londhave in the UK. But yeah, so hopefully you guys understood and Victoria understood what I had to say.
I've got you. And
Perfect.
thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
No, thank you.
And
My
everyone else,
pleasure.
thank you for tuning into another episode of Love and Lattes. This is
Yeah.
Victoria and the beautiful Rachel Rose. We'll see you next time.
Thank you guys.